poison has always carried a certain chill, mostly because it feels ancient, like something out of medieval Europe, not modern suburban life. Mushroom poisoning especially sounds like a threat from the Dark Ages, when people foraged in forests, and one wrong bite could wipe out a family. It's not the kind of danger anyone expects in a comfortable contemporary kitchen. And when the suspected poisoner is a woman, the fascination doubles. Society tends to cast women as caregivers, the safe ones, the steady hands in a crisis. So when a woman is accused in a case involving death, deception, or deliberate harm, it hits a nerve. It contradicts those ingrained expectations, and people can't look away. That's exactly why the Erin Patterson case collided with the world's attention. A quiet Australian town, an ordinary family lunch, and a suspected toxin that feels centuries out of place. Today, we're taking you to Leongatha, Victoria. Rolling farmland, small town pace, the kind of place where nothing out of the ordinary usually happens. Until 2023, when a simple meal turned into an international headline.
I'm Darlene.
And I'm Melody.
This is Hard Times and True Crimes.
So we just want to shout out a few of our listeners for some support. All of our listeners are so good. We've gotten a lot of fan mail.
We have.
We've had some great comments come on or come into our YouTube channel. We've had great comments through Spotify and some reviews through Apple.
Do you get so excited whenever you see that we have fan mail?
I do.
I get excited and scared. I'm like, I hope it's a good one. And it usually always is.
Yes.
Like, we have the best fans.
We do. And we want you to know, if you are leaving fan mail on our Buzzsprout, we can't respond directly back to you for some reason on there. That platform just doesn't work that way.
Right.
But we do read all of them, and we are so grateful for those comments that we get.
Are.
They
and of course,
they really encourage us.
Yes. And of course, we love the reviews.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
Amazing. Keep sending them.
Also, we just want to specifically shout out Shay Davidson bought us some coffees. Thank you, Shay.
Yay, Shay. Thank you.
And Catherine Britt has signed up on our Buy Me a Coffee.
Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you. So, thank you all.
Yes.
Okay. So, we also wanted to let you guys know we've had a lot of life going on lately. And that has kind of
thrown us off. It's thrown us off in November for sure.
Yes, for our schedule. So this episode that you're hearing now will be our only November episode. We are planning to get you 2 episodes in December, one of those on Christmas Eve.
Yes.
And then we will probably be on a short break for the beginning of January.
So Melody started a full-time job.
Whew, I did.
And my daughter just left for basic training. And she's actually coming home for Christmas. And so I don't want to, miss any of that time. So,
right.
Yeah, we're just altering our schedules a little bit.
Yeah, which is very understandable that you don't want to miss that. So you guys just bear with us. We're going to try to stay very consistent, but just during the holidays and all of this, we're just kind of tweaking our schedule just a bit.
And then it'll be back to normal.
Whatever that is.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to jump into this episode, and I'm taking you all the way to Australia. And it's not an old episode. I'm interested to see if you've heard of this one. I feel like you probably have. If you've been on the news, you've probably seen it.
Okay.
Okay, so on the afternoon of July 29th in 2023, Erin Patterson sat down to lunch with her in-laws at her home in Leongatha, Australia. She had invited her estranged husband, Simon, his parents, Donald and Gail, and Gail's sister, Heather, with her husband, Ian Wilkinson. So although Simon had been invited, he begged off at the last minute. So he wasn't at the lunch, which kind of disappointed Erin a little bit. The reason she had invited him over was that she needed to discuss some medical issues that she was having.
Okay.
So when Simon had kind of begged off, she replied to him in her text saying, I wanted it to be a special meal as I may not be able to host a lunch like this again for some time. So she was wanting to discuss with the family without her children present. So she had sent her 14 and 9-year-olds out to the cinema, or what we call the movies.
Right.
And since Simon wasn't there, it was just Erin, her in-laws and Simon's aunt and uncle that were there. Erin had gone out of her way to make this meal special. She had made beef Wellington.
Ooh.
Yeah, and if you don't know what that is, because I don't think we really eat that a lot here, or at least not in my neck of the woods. I guess if you're fancy, you do.
They do serve it at Hamilton's.
Oh, I might have to go try some. Okay, so like I said, if you're fancy, that's a dish of beef tenderloin, usually expensive cuts of meat, covered in a mushroom paste and wrapped in a puff pastry.
I feel like I would love that. That sounds really good.
It does sound really good. And Erin had gone a step above by making each guest their own individual pastry. She was just wanting to make it really nice. And she had even made one for Simon just in case he did decide to show up at the last minute.
Okay, and just to make sure that I'm straight, Simon is the ex.
They're not divorced.
Okay.
They are separated.
Okay.
And he does not live in the home.
Got it.
But it was his parents that were at the meal.
Okay.
Okay. So Simon and Erin, they had been married since 2007. They had had some on again, off again splits, and then had been split up since 2015. It had started out as an amicable split and had only recently become tense, like in the past year, over some child support payment issues and things like that.
Typical.
Yes. So it wasn't odd that Simon's parents shared lunch with Erin. After all, they had 2 children together, and this was their grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
Erin, at one time, had been close with Donald and Gail. They really effectively were her only family. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But at this point, Erin's parents were deceased.
Okay.
And she wanted to be sure they were going to be available for her to help with the kids when she fought some health battles that she had going on, because they were really the only people in her life.
Mm.
So the 5 of them sat down to this lovely meal of beef Wellington, mashed potatoes, green beans, and gravy.
Golly, that does sound like a nice meal.
I know, I'm kind of hungry.
I know, I was thinking that.
And Gail had brought an orange cake for dessert. Although Gail and Heather both offered to help, Erin, she just insisted she wanted to, serve her guest. And then they asked the blessing. Ian actually was a Baptist pastor.
Oh, okay.
And then they chatted, they ate. They all commented on how delicious everything was. They only had a little of the cake because they were so stuffed. They couldn't eat much of it. And finally, it came to the point where Erin got down to what she had really invited them there for, which was to tell them that she had ovarian cancer. Mm. And it was pretty serious. So after the 2 couples, they tried to console her and reassure her. They ended the afternoon by praying over her again before they went home. But later that evening, both couples began to feel sick. And within a short time of those symptoms, they were violently sick with vomiting and diarrhea.
Okay, so the aunt and uncle and the in-laws.
Yes.
Okay.
So violently that they were sleeping beside the toilet. Like,
wow.
It was very bad. And so the next morning, both couples did go to the hospital.
Okay.
Upon arrival, they were still able to talk to the hospital staff, tell them, what their symptoms were, timeline of everything that had happened in the past 24 hours, that kind of thing. And so doctors were obviously suspicious that this was more than just a case of gastritis.
Sure. So was the hostess sick?
She did end up going to the hospital. I'll get to that about her being sick. They wondered, had they been exposed to food poisoning? Mm-hmm. So they did run some toxology tests, and it showed that all 4 of them had grossly abnormal liver function. Doctors questioned them, what they had eaten recently, and they suspected maybe that the beef was the culprit. Maybe they had gotten some bad meat. Mm-hmm. At this point, they were going downhill pretty fast and got to a point where they could no longer they were in a coma and couldn't speak.
Okay, so it's serious.
Very serious. The medical staff began to wonder, instead of getting some bad beef, could they have ingested some death cap mushrooms in the meal? While they were unsure if that was the case, they did administer the antidote immediately when they thought of it, just in case.
Right.
They were hopeful that would stop it in its tracks if that's what it was. So you asked about Erin, the hostess.
Sure.
So on the second day after the meal, she showed up at the hospital sick. She said she had not thrown up, but she had severe stomach upset and diarrhea. So they gave her IV fluids, and one of the doctors realized who she was.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Hey, what's your name?" And she told him, "Erin." And he said, "Are you the one that hosted the meal?" She admitted she was, and he was concerned. And he said, I need to admit you for assessment. This could be deadly.
Yeah.
But she did not feel the need. So she checked herself out of the hospital against his wishes, and she went home. But she had told them that her children had eaten leftovers of that meal. So he pressed her. He's like, "You need to bring your children in. They need to be checked out." And she refused, saying that she didn't want to frighten the kids. And to that, her doctor replied, "Well, they can either be scared and alive or dead."
Right.
But she still refused and would not relent. So when she left, the doctor, he was surprised that she had discharged herself against his advice. He was not going to let it go because the kids were involved.
Mm-hmm.
So he called police to have her forced to step in, to bring them back.
Right.
And they did. And so they tested her and the kids. And fortunately, neither she nor the children showed any signs of the same poisoning that the other family members had.
Okay.
Doctors were treating the Pattersons and the Wilkinsons aggressively. And Donald even ended up having to get an emergency liver transplant.
Oh, my gosh.
That's how bad this was. Despite the doctor's efforts, on August 4th, both Gail and her sister Heather passed away.
That is so sad.
Yeah, very, very sad. And autopsy results said that the cause of death was altered liver function and multiple organ failure secondary to Amanita mushroom poisoning, a.k.a. death cap mushrooms.
Okay. So they know that that's what it was.
Yeah, at that point, they did know.
Okay.
That it was not the beef, it was in the mushrooms.
Okay.
Poisonous mushrooms. Gail was 70 and Heather was just 66 years old. Meanwhile, Donald Patterson and Ian were still struggling to stay alive, and now the doctors were very suspicious whether something more sinister had happened. Like, was this more than just an accident?
Right.
Doctors weren't the only ones wondering how those death cap mushrooms came to be into that food. So on Saturday, August 5th, police went to Erin's home with a search warrant, and they pulled some of the leftovers of that beef Wellington out of the trash bin, and they also searched her home. Erin went down to the police station and spoke with the investigators there at Wonthaggi Station. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And that was her first interview with them. And I listened to this interview. I'll put a link to it in the show notes if you want to hear it. But in this interview, they asked Erin, had she ever foraged for mushrooms? No, she said. Did she preserve foods or anything like that? No. Did you own a food dehydrator? No. But unknown to Erin, detectives had already found an instruction manual for a food dehydrator in the search of her home. And just through some good old gumshoe work, they had obtained CCTV footage of her actually disposing of a food hydrator at like a landfill just days after the lunch.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, she's an idiot because I would have totally been like, it was just an accident.
At that point, yeah.
At that point.
Exactly, because you
could have just been like, oh, it was an accident.
Yeah, well. At that interview, they asked for her cell phone and she gave it to detectives. And so they lay out the situation about what happened. These people that ate at your home are deathly sick.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand the situation? She said she did. And she also pointed out, but I've been helpful to y'all so far. I've done everything you've asked. On August the 5th, that's when she had her interview. Later that night, her father-in-law, 70-year-old Donald, also succumbed to his poisoning.
Oh, no.
And he passed away. And it was also at this time that Erin's story was beginning to unravel quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
The beef Wellington that had been found in the trash at her home later did test positive for containing death cap mushrooms. And it was no longer a question of whether she had fed it. They knew that's where they had gotten it. But the question is just like, was it on purpose?
Right.
And like you said, that would have been her chance to say it was an accident. But she didn't. She denied.
Doubled down on her lie.
Doubled down. When asked where she had obtained those mushrooms for the recipe, she stated that she had got them at an Asian grocery store in a nearby little town called Oakley. So an investigator, again, these investigators did a great job, by the way. He found only one Asian store in that area where she said she had bought them, and the ones that they sold did not match the packaging that she had.
Mm.
So they couldn't have come from that store. But then she changed her story. She said she might have foraged the mushrooms that had been used in the recipe and had accidentally gotten them mixed in with some of the store-bought ones because of a labeling issue.
Oh, shoot. It's too late for that now.
Too late.
But why the in-laws? They were so nice.
I know.
My
Just
gosh.
wait. We're talking about how nice. Just you wait. So Ian Wilkinson, he was age 68. At this point, he was the only one left, and he had been hanging on by a thread. And he awoke from a coma a few days later just to find that his wife and brother and sister-in-law had all passed away.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it's so sad for him that, he goes to this lunch, this lovely lunch, and then he wakes up from a coma to find out that they're no longer with him.
That's terrible.
Well, by September 23rd, he had recovered enough and he was released from the hospital, and he was the only one of those 4 who had survived. And he recalled something now, that before his wife had died, actually while they were on the way to the hospital, Heather had wondered out loud about something. She had noticed that Erin had served her guest food on 4 gray plates while using a small orange plate for her own self. And she, at the time, had made the comment, is Erin short on crockery? Now he remembers that, and he's thinking, that's interesting. On November 2nd, Erin Patterson, age 49, was arrested and charged with 3 counts of murder and 2 counts of attempted murder of Ian.
Yeah.
And since Simon had been unable to attend, but she had actually made him his own individual pastry too.
They got her for that.
They
too.
got her for that.
Good.
Lucky for him, he had backed out. So was she somebody who could have poisoned not just her estranged husband, but these innocent in-laws?
Yeah.
Simon felt wholeheartedly that indeed that was exactly what she had done. And he told her that. He accused her of that within days, you tried to kill my parents. You did kill my parents. So let's look at Erin a little bit more closely and let's see what you think.
Okay.
So she was born Erin Trudy Scudder in 1974. She grew up in the middle-class Glen Waverley suburb of Melbourne. She came from this family of intellectuals. Her mother was like this well-known speaker and expert in children's literature. She read to her children daily. She was just a very smart and respected woman in her field. But Erin tells of a troubled upbringing. She tells about how her mother would weigh her weekly to make sure she hadn't gained too much weight. And if that's true, you can see how she might have gotten this low self-esteem or whatever.
Yeah, but my gosh, I hate when people bring this stuff up when they murder somebody. I'm like, okay, that did not make you kill somebody.
Right, exactly. It's like, it's that snowflake mentality. Yes. So she does credit that her mother's weekly weigh-ins of her as being the cause of a lifelong battle that she had with eating disorders. Mm-hmm. So we're going to revisit that too. Okay. So I'm telling you that for a reason. Her father, he was like this director at these companies. He was kind of high up. Her sister was a scientist at Monash University.
Okay.
And Erin was smart. Well, I mean, I know you said she's an idiot, but she was intellectual in some ways. At different times, she studied science at university. Then she studied accounting, and she trained to be an air traffic controller.
Okay.
She was bright. She was one of the few of her class to pass that notoriously difficult air traffic controller test.
Just a really bad liar.
Yeah. Yeah. Her co-workers during the time she was in school for that, they described this serious Erin, a loner, maybe a bit odd in some ways. Mm-hmm. Some said that she could be abrasive or hostile at times and like aggressive in her responses. And she didn't really make friends during that time. While the group would kind of go out and socialize together, Erin didn't join in. And behind her back, some of them called her Scudder the Nutter. Not a very nice name.
Yeah.
Some co-workers told of an incident when she called in to work posing as another employee, claiming to be sick. And they were like, we don't know if it was a prank or it was a ploy to get some extra shifts. Who knows?
Weird.
But she didn't last long at that place.
Yeah.
As you can imagine. Erin moved on from that job and she went to work for animal management at RSPCA. I assumed that was some kind of animal rescue something.
Right.
So it was here in 2004 that she met Simon Patterson. He was attracted to her intelligence and he said she was witty.
Okay.
You know, so she had a little sense of humor there. They saw each other and then they ended up getting married about 3 years later. Her parents were not at the wedding. She said they were on holiday. They were on a train in Russia at the time.
Okay.
When her grandmother passed away in 2006, Erin inherited about $2 million. So that was enough of a windfall that she and Simon, they kind of like quit their jobs and traveled around a little bit, going around Australia. And they finally did settle down. Simon took a job with the local council, and Erin opened up a quaint little bookstore. So I think that sounds kind of dreamy, like, oh, I would love to do that. And then in 2019, she inherited again when her mother passed away.
Okay.
So her dad had been gone for about 8 years at this point, and it was just her and her sister, and they split this sizable estate from her mother. They sold her parents' beach house at that point. Okay. And just the proceeds from that sale was like $900,000. And that was just the house. That wasn't the rest of the stuff. So at this point, you know, Erin's doing pretty well.
Yeah.
And she was able to help out her husband's family. So she would give them like these interest-free loans for mortgages so they could buy like beach houses and stuff.
Okay.
So she was generous. And around this time, she did seem to be rather close with her husband's family.
Right.
Her relationship to Simon's aunt and uncle, Ian and Heather, it wasn't considered close, but it was an active relationship. So I think I told you earlier, Ian was a Baptist pastor.
Yes.
And Erin attended his church regularly. So he wasn't just her husband's uncle, it was her pastor.
Okay.
Now, Erin had not always been a Christian. In fact, when she met Simon, she was a self-proclaimed atheist. And in her mind, she kind of thought that he would eventually come to her way of thinking.
Right.
And once they became serious, you know, she thought he'll give up his beliefs and follow me. Mm-hmm. But instead, she said it happened the other way around. She recalled that after her first visit to Ian's church with Simon, she became a Christian instead.
Wow.
She said she had this spiritual moment, and she became a Christian. So she said. When she and Simon married, it was Ian's son, David, who walked her down the aisle since her parents were out of the country.
There's something fishy there with them not being
I think
at their
so,
own
too.
daughter's wedding.
I mean, why would you just not plan to have your wedding when they're back or something? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they must have been estranged. Donald and Gail, these are Simon's parents. In their younger years, they had been missionaries to Botswana. Oh. And then they later taught English in China. They were pillars in their community and of their church, their Baptist church. They were a big influence on Erin's life. And so she was closer to them than her own family. It was said that when she had some trouble after childbirth, her mother-in-law came and helped her out a lot. And Erin was very appreciative of that. And she had a special bond with her father-in-law, Donald. He was like a retired science teacher. Mm-hmm. And so they had this love of learning and knowledge. And they would sit and they would have like these long intellectual conversations. And so they just kind of had that bond.
Yeah. This family was really good to her.
They were very good to her. And so that's why when she and Simon did split up, it was still amicable. And at first, they shared custody of the kids still, and Simon even continued to go on family holidays with them. So in the most recent years, these tensions had been rising over this child support, as I mentioned. And the family had noticed Erin was pulling away from them. She had complained to friends about deadbeat Simon, calling him a deadbeat dad, and his, quote, lost cause family. And somehow what had happened was Simon said it was a mix-up with his accountant. Now, again, this is in Australia, so it's quite different than what we understand in the U.S.
Right.
But somehow or another, he had filed single on his taxes. Mm-hmm. And when he did that, whatever happened, it caused Erin to risk losing her benefits through the government child support agency.
Oh, okay.
And the agency told Simon to stop making school and medical payments on the kids. And so this relationship got strained over the finance situation. And so it was in the midst of all of that Erin invited everybody over for lunch.
Okay.
That's where we come to at this point. Now that Erin had been arrested, prosecutors felt that the financial tension between those two was a motive for her to make an attempt on his life. But like you, they wondered, but why kill his parents and his aunt and uncle, especially when he wasn't even there? Why not just back out of your plan since he didn't show up?
You want me to make a guess?
Yeah.
Okay, I have 2 guesses.
Okay.
One is because maybe she thinks if they're all dead that she would inherit. The other is that they owe her money because she gave them loans to get, because you were saying that.
That's a good line of thinking there.
You were saying, yeah, because she had loaned them money for, I guess, beach houses and this and that.
Yeah. And I don't know if they had already paid her back or if, like you said, maybe she felt they owed her some money. That's a good question there.
And maybe it was a gift, but maybe now she just wasn't,
maybe
in a giving mood.
Yeah. I like the way your mind works.
Trust no one.
The prosecutors, it was a little bit of an obstacle not having an exact motive to pin on her. But at the same time, they didn't actually have to prove a motive.
Right.
However, Simon's brother did note that Erin had felt snubbed by them. She apparently had received a late invitation to the mother-in-law's 70th birthday party.
Okay.
And it made her feel like she had been left out of it. And so that relationship, but with the in-laws, had been unraveling too. And she actually had been texting friends kind of railing about the in-laws.
The in-laws too. Okay.
So now she was facing allegations and charges for murdering the very family that she claimed to love. And there's a lot of circumstantial evidence to back up those charges. The question was whether a jury would find it enough evidence to prove it was deliberate.
Right.
And not just the horrible accident that she claimed it was. So investigators were unable to find any usable evidence on the cell phone that Erin had turned over to them. Forensics test on the phone showed that it had been factory reset and wiped clean at least 3 times in the days leading up to the search warrant when it was seized, and had even been wiped again remotely while it was in police custody.
Really?
She said on the stand at her trial, she thought to herself, well, I wonder if they left it on, and so she thought she would just try to reset it remotely, and it worked.
That's interesting.
So, police, take note. If you seize a cell phone, turn that baby off.
Yeah, but I thought that they were still able to obtain information even after it had been wiped clean.
They were.
Okay, good.
To make matters more interesting about that, it was later determined that the phone that she turned over to the police was not even her primary phone. She had been using 3 different phones around that time, and 2 of those phones were never recovered.
Wow.
However, detectives were able to recover some information on the one that she had reset.
Okay.
And one of those things was a photo of what appeared to be death cap mushrooms being weighed on a dehydrator.
Oh my goodness.
And she posted that picture in a Facebook group.
What a moron.
Yeah.
Smart people sometimes are they're smart in one way, like maybe book smart, but they have no common sense.
Exactly. Actually, I'm kind of like that.
No, you're not.
Well, I'm book smart, but sometimes I'm like, man, sometimes I'm an idiot.
Me too.
Police also on that phone, this may have been on another computer. I'm not sure where they found this, but they did find where she had visited this website called iNaturalist. Mm-hmm. And where she had pinned locations where death cap mushrooms could be foraged. They found her going to locations in that vicinity. They couldn't prove that she had been exactly to them because the signal wasn't good enough to give a precise location. Okay. But it looked like she had gone to those vicinities.
Got it.
In those days prior to. And then, of course, they showed that CCTV footage of her disposing of that dehydrator at the landfill.
Right.
The story that she told her in-laws about having ovarian cancer would also prove to be a lie.
I knew it.
I knew you wouldn't be
she was lying.
surprised. But get this. When they pressed her on it, she explained, well, she had been planning to have gastric bypass surgery, but she was too embarrassed to tell the in-laws that, so she had made up the cancer story just so she would still know they could help with the kids while she was recovering.
Those are two very different things.
Well, hold on to your seat, because the bariatric surgery thing was a lie, too.
Oh, my gosh.
The clinic that she told them she had an appointment with didn't even do bariatric surgery. So her lies just keep unraveling.
She is not a good liar, for sure.
Also, her fingerprints were found on that dehydrator, along with traces of Amanita phthalioids toxins. I butchered that, whatever it's called. But those toxins were also found in the urine samples of both of the male victims as well.
Wow.
So they have a lot of circumstantial evidence.
Yes.
So her trial actually began this year on April 29th.
Okay.
And it lasted 11 weeks. It went through July the 7th. And that case made headlines like around the world, which is why I felt like you might have heard of it.
I don't think I actually heard of it through the trial. I think I heard of it before.
Really?
Yeah.
Where? When?
Yeah. Like just on
Something.
Yeah, on
Okay.
something. Probably online.
Now that the prosecutors were able to present all these lies, her defense, they admitted, okay, it does look really bad, but being a liar doesn't make you a killer. So their explanation was that when Erin realized that the lunch might have accidentally included those mushrooms, and this was her quote, she was too scared to tell a soul. Her words.
Mm-hmm.
And then after she tried to lie and cover it up, she called it a stupid knee-jerk reaction to dig deeper and keep lying.
Yeah, that's what pathological liars do.
Yes. So the children testified in court that they had eaten leftovers the next day. I can't believe she let them do this, but she supposedly wiped the mushroom paste off of it.
Oh my gosh, was she trying to kill them too?
I don't know. I wondered about that. It said that they ate the beef without the mushrooms or the pastry, so they just wiped it off. But
I don't know.
I'm just thinking, would you let your kids eat that?
No, not even wiping it off isn't going to remove those trace toxins.
Maybe the reason she let her kids eat that is that she really thought that, if she wiped off the poison, that even if they got a little bit of it, it would make them sick. It would show up in their system and provide more of an alibi for her. And maybe she just really, wasn't thinking of the fact that I'm giving my children with something that had poison on it, but just thinking this would add to her credibility and still be okay. I mean, it's not a great thought, but maybe that's what was going on in her mind. Erin actually did not eat any of it, as she still felt unwell, according to the kids' testimony. Investigators were like, well, if your claims of stomach upset, are they even true at all? She had not gotten nearly as sick as the others, and she had eaten the exact same thing if she ate it.
Mm-hmm.
And her response was this. We talked about that eating disorder. So she said she had struggled with bulimia for years. And so that night after her guest left, they had left that cake that her mother-in-law had brought. And so she ate a piece, and then she ate another piece. And before she knew it, she'd eaten almost the whole cake. And then she made herself throw up because years of binging and purging were normal for her.
Mm-hmm.
And so she said she vomited up the cake, and she felt like that probably got rid of everything in her stomach, and so the toxins didn't affect her because it was out of her system. So that was her explanation. That's a pretty creative lie.
That is a pretty creative one. I wonder if her or her lawyer came up with that one.
Yeah, I don't know. But this one was kind of funny. One rather observant Reddit sleuth that was following this case said that, so in the court, they showed this hospital camera footage of her actually getting to the hospital that night. So you could see it on the screen. And that was when she was saying she had severe diarrhea. And so this observant Reddit person said that's when she gave herself away because she was wearing white pants and ain't no way she would have done that if she was having severe diarrhea.
That is so funny. And bulimia doesn't give you diarrhea. Well, I guess she's saying.
At that point, she wasn't claiming bulimia. At that point, she was trying to act like she had the food poisoning.
Okay.
But yeah, no way you're showing up in white pants if you've been having a problem with that.
Absolutely not.
And I thought that was a pretty good observation.
A good take, yeah.
You probably would have been one to have noticed that. So, speaking of online sleuths, though, like many of you listeners and us, Erin seemed to have this affinity for true crime stories. She had been an active member of the Facebook group, which was focused on crimes by this notorious woman in Australia. Her name was Kelly Lane.
Okay.
And she had been accused of killing her baby daughter. And so everybody in Australia knows about that case. And so there was a Facebook group dedicated to that whole story.
Okay.
And, there's these online sleuths that get on there and try to figure out. And Erin was very active in that group. She was, and one of her friends on that group called her a super sleuth. The kind who notices details, such as a suspect wearing white pants to the hospital.
Right.
But she didn't catch it on herself. So, shameless plug, y'all go join our Facebook group.
Yes, please do.
In the end, after all testimony was heard and the jury deliberations were completed, a panel of 12 jurors unanimously found Erin Scudder Patterson guilty.
Thank God.
Of all 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder.
Good.
Some people felt, well, all these lies and her seemingly lack of empathy for the victims and her efforts to cover her tracks were just very damning to her case. But there's one more thing.
Okay.
What the jury did not hear, and what I haven't told you yet, was that we talked about the attempted murder charge for Simon, because she had made him that extra pastry.
Yeah.
Well, there was actually some more evidence the jury didn't hear during her case, because Erin had been suspected of attempting to poison Simon prior to the lunch. Between November of 2021 and September of 2022, Simon had been hospitalized 3 times with gastro symptoms.
Oh my gosh.
And on his second incident, it had actually resulted in a coma, and he had to have life-saving surgery, part of his intestines being removed.
Oh my gracious.
Actually, that's why Simon had canceled at the last minute anyway. He had thought Erin was trying to poison him and was suspicious about that very thing. He just had no idea that she would also poison his family members. So that was the whole reason he didn't show. Yeah. So a medical expert's report had been prepared for this trial. They had found that his symptoms had been consistent with the ingestion of barium carbonate, which is an ingredient in rat poison. But those details had been suppressed during her trial.
I hate that they do that.
I hate that they do that too, because as a jury, I feel like you should hear that.
Yes, that's evidence that pertains to that case.
Yes, so I don't know how they kept it out. On the eve of her trial, they dropped those charges.
Oh my gosh. I bet he was mad.
Yeah, because he knew that she had been trying that.
And she should be accountable for what she did to him too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But anyway, on September 8th, just 2.5 months ago, Justice Beale sentenced Erin to 3 life sentences plus 25 years. So she will become eligible for parole in 2056. I think she'll be in her 80s then. Due to the notoriety of the case, she has been kept in maximum security. So for 22 hours a day, she's in her cell with meals and meds delivered through a door flap. She's only allowed outside or in the library when no one else is in there. She effectively has been in solitary confinement, but for her own safety for the last 15 months.
Wow.
But due to the extreme conditions of that, the judge actually allowed her that possibility of parole. In her case, after a 33-year non-parole period.
Okay.
He stated that her conditions, while necessary for her protection, were inhumane and made her burden more than other prisoners.
Okay.
And so he kind of went lenient there. I don't really agree with that.
Mm-mm.
And the prosecution didn't either. They lodged an appeal. They called her sentence inadequate for murdering 3 people.
Right.
Her sentence is one of the longest jail terms given to a female offender in Australia. And unlike the U.S., an appeal is not an automatic right. Her legal team actually had to convince the courts that there may have been errors in the trial before she could actually get it heard. So at the time of this publishing was just, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So on November 3rd, Erin was granted leave so she could appeal her guilty verdict. I know your eyes just got really wide. Mine did too. I'm like, what the heck? They're letting her out? But that's not what that means in Australia.
Oh, good.
A leave to appeal means you get permission to be heard.
Okay.
Permission does not equal release.
Okay,
So
good.
I had to dig into that because I'm like, no way. She's still there. She's now 51, currently locked up in the Dame Phyllis Frost Centre in Melbourne. And due to the amount of media coverage of the case, you can expect in the near future to see many documentaries, books, articles, and yes, even podcasts that are going to cover this story. But lastly, I want to mention the victims.
Yes.
Her children are obviously secondary victims. Their names were never mentioned, and I'm glad. I'm
Yeah.
glad that people
Good
can't
for
just
them,
find out who
yeah.
that is. And I don't know if they live with their father or where they are. Ian, although he did survive, he still has ongoing health issues and probably always will.
Sure.
And he misses his wife so much.
That's so sad.
He spoke about their 44 years together and how, this broke my heart, how he only feels half alive without her.
That is so sad.
Can you imagine? Oh. And yet, get this, he spoke words of forgiveness toward Erin. He said, I'm no longer Erin Patterson's victim, and she has become the victim of my kindness.
Wow.
I'm like, that is a strong
That's
man.
powerful, yeah.
And then Simon had this to say about his parents. They acknowledged life's transience and death's reality as something that is not right about the world and very sad, but also knew that death is not final, he said. They would always wave goodbye when they parted ways. It was partly because one day would be the last wave. And their plaque at their markers reads, just remember that death is not the end.
Wow.
And that is my story about the mushroom poisoner.
Well, that was a really good, terrible story.
Yeah,
But gosh, those were some hard times.
those were.